In the grand halls of Windsor Castle, where centuries of royal secrets have been whispered through stone corridors, one moment would change everything between two women who had spent years navigating the delicate dance of royal protocol. Catherine's hand trembled slightly as she extended her fingers, the afternoon light catching the sapphire that had once graced another princess's hand. Across the ornate drawing room, Camilla's teacup froze halfway to her lips, her carefully composed expression faltering for just a heartbeat. The silence that followed would echo through the monarchy for years to come, marking the moment when past, present, and future collided in the most unexpected way. The morning mist clung to the grounds of Clarence House as Camilla Parker Bowles prepared for what she believed would be a routine meeting with the royal family. At 64, she had learned to navigate the intricate web of palace politics with practiced grace, her years as the Duchess of Cornwall having taught her the delicate art of royal diplomacy. The invitation to join Catherine and William for afternoon tea had arrived 3 days prior, written in the formal script that characterized all royal correspondence, yet something about its tone had left her with an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite place. Catherine had been unusually quiet during recent family gatherings, her normally bright demeanor replaced by a contemplative distance that hadn't gone unnoticed by those closest to her. The young Duchess of Cambridge had always been meticulous about royal protocol, but lately her adherence to tradition seemed to carry an additional weight, as if she were preparing for something significant. William, too, had appeared more serious than usual, his conversations with his father taking on a hushed urgency that suggested matters of considerable importance were being discussed behind closed doors. The relationship between Camilla and Catherine had always been cordial, built on mutual respect for their shared roles within the royal hierarchy. However, beneath the surface pleasantries lay an unspoken understanding of the complex dynamics that had shaped both of their journeys into the House of Windsor. Camilla's path had been marked by public scrutiny and gradual acceptance, while Catherine's had been observed from its very beginning, documented, and analyzed by a global audience hungry for every detail of the future queen's life. As Camilla's car approached the familiar gates of Kensington Palace, she reflected on the conversation she'd had with Charles the previous evening. He had been uncharacteristically evasive when she'd mentioned the upcoming tea, his responses carefully measured in a way that suggested he knew more about the purpose of this gathering than he was willing to share. The subtle tension in his voice when Catherine's name was mentioned had not escaped her notice, and she found herself wondering what significance this seemingly simple family meeting might hold. The drawing room where they were to meet held particular significance within the palace walls. It was here that many important family discussions had taken place over the years, its elegant furnishings and carefully arranged artwork creating an atmosphere that was both intimate and formal. The room's large windows offered a view of the palace gardens, where Catherine had often been photographed playing with her children, creating the public image of domestic happiness that had endeared her to the British people. When Camilla arrived, she found Catherine already seated, her posture impeccably straight, yet somehow tense. William stood by the window, his hands clasped behind his back in a gesture that reminded Camilla distinctly of his grandfather. The atmosphere in the room was charged with an anticipation that seemed disproportionate to the occasion, and Camilla's years of experience in reading social situations immediately put her on alert. The initial conversation flowed along expected lines, touching on recent royal engagements, the children's activities, and plans for upcoming state occasions. Yet beneath the familiar rhythm of royal small talk, Camilla sensed an undercurrent of purpose that made her increasingly aware that this meeting had been carefully orchestrated. Catherine's responses, while perfectly appropriate, carried a measured quality that suggested she was following a predetermined script, building towards something significant. As the afternoon progressed, Camilla noticed subtle details that reinforced her growing conviction that this gathering was far from routine. The way Catherine's eyes occasionally drifted to her handbag, the careful attention William paid to their conversation despite his apparent focus on the garden view, and, most tellingly, the absence of the relaxed atmosphere that typically characterized their family interactions. Every element of the scene seemed designed to create a specific moment, though its nature remained tantalizingly unclear. The turning point came when Catherine excused herself briefly, ostensibly to check on the refreshments. During her absence, William's demeanor shifted noticeably, his casual stance by the window giving way to a more formal positioning near his wife's chair. When Catherine returned, Camilla observed a subtle change in her bearing, as if she had used those few moments to gather her resolve for whatever was to come. The stage was set, though Camilla remained unaware of the revelation that would soon unfold. Catherine resumed her seat with deliberate grace, her movements carrying the weight of ceremony despite the informal setting. The conversation that followed seemed to spiral inward, touching on increasingly personal topics related to their shared experiences within the royal family. It was during this exchange that Catherine's hand moved to her handbag, a gesture so subtle that it might have been missed by a less observant companion. However, Camilla's years of navigating palace intrigue had trained her to notice such moments, and she found herself focusing intently on Catherine's next words. The revelation began not with dramatic announcement, but with a quiet statement about the weight of royal inheritance and the responsibility that came with carrying forward the legacy of those who had served before them. Catherine spoke of the artifacts and treasures that had been passed down through generations, each carrying its own story and significance within the broader narrative of the monarchy. Her words were carefully chosen, building toward a moment of disclosure that would reshape the understanding between the two women. As Catherine spoke, her hand moved again to her handbag, this time with unmistakable purpose. The gesture was performed with the same careful attention to protocol that characterized all of her public actions, yet there was something deeply personal in the way she handled whatever object lay concealed within. Camilla found herself drawn into the moment, her years of royal training telling her that she was witnessing something of profound significance, though its exact nature remained tantalizingly just beyond her comprehension. The atmosphere in the room seemed to crystallize as Catherine's narrative reached its crescendo, her words creating a sense of anticipation that made the very air feel charged with possibility. William's position by the window took on new significance as Camilla realized he was serving as both witness and guardian of this moment, his presence adding weight to whatever revelation his wife was preparing to share. The careful choreography of the entire afternoon suddenly became clear, each element designed to create the perfect setting for what was about to unfold. When Catherine finally withdrew her hand from her handbag, Camilla's trained eye immediately recognized that whatever she held was being presented with the full ceremony that royal protocol demanded for objects of particular significance. The moment stretched between them, pregnant with the weight of history and the promise of revelation, as Catherine prepared to share something that would forever change the dynamic of their relationship and their understanding of their respective places within the royal legacy. The object in Catherine's hand caught the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows, creating a moment of breathtaking beauty that seemed to suspend time itself. As her fingers opened to reveal what lay within her palm, Camilla felt her breath catch in recognition of something she had thought lost to history forever. The sapphire ring, with its distinctive oval stone surrounded by a cluster of diamonds, was unmistakably the same piece of jewelry that had once graced the finger of Diana, Princess of Wales, a woman whose memory continued to cast a long shadow over the royal family decades after her untimely death. Camilla's immediate reaction was a complex mixture of emotions that she struggled to process in the charged atmosphere of the drawing room. The ring represented far more than a simple piece of jewelry. It was a tangible connection to a woman who had been both beloved by the public and a source of profound personal pain within the royal family. For Camilla, whose own relationship with Charles had been forever intertwined with the story of his first marriage, seeing Diana's engagement ring in Catherine's possession carried implications that went far beyond its obvious monetary or historical value. The silence that followed Catherine's revelation stretched between the three occupants of the room like a taut wire, each of them acutely aware of the significance of the moment. William's expression remained carefully neutral, Though Camilla could see in his eyes the complex emotions that came with watching his late mother's most famous piece of jewelry being displayed in this context. For him, the ring represented both a cherished connection to Diana's memory and a symbol of the love story that had ended in such public tragedy and personal loss. Catherine's decision to reveal the ring in this manner was clearly the result of careful consideration and planning. The formal yet intimate setting, the presence of William as witness, and the deliberate build-up to this moment all suggested that she understood the profound implications of what she was sharing. As the future queen consort, Catherine's possession of Diana's engagement ring represented a passing of the torch that went beyond mere protocol, symbolizing her acceptance of a legacy that came with both privilege and tremendous responsibility. The ring itself seemed to embody the complex history of the House of Windsor, its beauty unchanged despite the decades that had passed since Diana first wore it as a young bride-to-be. The sapphire's deep blue remained as vibrant as ever, while the surrounding diamonds continued to catch and reflect light with the same brilliance that had captivated the world when the engagement was first announced. Yet now it carried additional weight, having witnessed the rise and fall of one of the most famous love stories of the 20th century. Camilla found herself studying Catherine's expression as she held the ring, noting the reverence with which the younger woman treated this artifact of royal history. There was something deeply moving about watching Catherine handle what had once been Diana's most treasured possession, a recognition that she was not merely inheriting a piece of jewelry, but accepting responsibility for honoring the memory of the woman who had worn it before her. The gesture spoke to Catherine's understanding of her role, not just as William's wife, but as a guardian of the royal family's complex emotional legacy. The conversation that followed was conducted in the careful, measured tones that characterized discussions of sensitive family matters within royal circles. Catherine spoke of her awareness of the ring's significance, her understanding of what it meant to both William and to the broader public who had followed Diana's story with such devotion. She acknowledged the weight of wearing something so closely associated with William's mother, particularly given the circumstances that had brought it back into prominence after years of relative obscurity. William's contribution to the conversation revealed the deeply personal nature of his decision to propose with his mother's ring, his words carrying the emotional weight of someone who had grown up in the shadow of his parents' very public relationship struggles. He spoke of his desire to honor Diana's memory, while also creating something new and meaningful with Catherine, using the ring as a bridge between past and future that would allow his mother's legacy to continue in a positive way. His explanation provided insight into the careful thought that had gone into this choice, revealing it to be far more than a simple romantic gesture. For Camilla, listening to these explanations brought a flood of memories and emotions that she had spent years learning to manage. The ring served as a stark reminder of her own complicated history with the royal family, particularly the years when her relationship with Charles had been overshadowed by his ongoing connection to Diana. Seeing the ring now in Catherine's possession forced her to confront the reality that Diana's influence would continue to shape the royal family's narrative long into the future, regardless of her own role within that story. The implications of Catherine's revelation extended far beyond the personal relationships within the drawing room. The public significance of Diana's engagement ring was immense, representing one of the most recognizable pieces of royal jewelry in modern history. Its reappearance on Catherine's finger would inevitably draw comparisons between the two women, highlighting both their similarities and differences while reigniting public interest in the complex dynamics of royal marriage and the challenges of living life under constant scrutiny. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting longer shadows across the elegant furnishings of the drawing room, the three members of the royal family continued their careful navigation of the emotional landscape that Catherine's revelation had created. Each of them understood that this moment represented a turning point, not just in their personal relationships, but in the broader narrative of the monarchy itself. The ring had become a symbol of continuity and change, representing the royal family's ability to honor its past while moving forward into an uncertain future. Catherine's handling of the situation demonstrated the diplomatic skills that had made her such an effective member of the royal family. Her ability to acknowledge the complexity of the moment while remaining focused on the positive aspects of what the ring represented. She spoke of her commitment to honoring Diana's memory through her own service to the crown, using the ring as inspiration rather than burden in her approach to royal duties. Her words revealed a mature understanding of the challenges and opportunities that came with her position. The conversation gradually shifted toward practical considerations, touching on the public announcement that would inevitably follow and the media attention that Catherine's possession of the ring would generate. All three participants understood that this revelation would become a defining moment in Catherine's public narrative, forever linking her story to Diana's in ways that would influence how both women were remembered by history. The careful planning that had gone into this moment reflected their shared awareness of its broader significance. As the formal portion of their meeting drew to a close, Camilla found herself reflecting on the grace with which Catherine had handled this delicate situation. The younger woman's approach had demonstrated both respect for the ring's history and confidence in her own role within the royal family, suggesting that she was well prepared for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The moment had revealed Catherine's evolution from nervous newcomer to confident future queen, marking another step in her journey toward fully embracing her destiny within the House of Windsor. Third document, the weeks following Catherine's revelation brought a subtle but noticeable shift in the dynamics within royal circles. As news of Diana's engagement ring finding new purpose began to circulate among those closest to the family. Camilla observed these changes with the keen awareness that came from years of navigating the complex currents of palace politics, noting how different members of the royal household reacted to this development with varying degrees of enthusiasm, concern, and curiosity about its broader implications for the monarchy's future direction. The media's eventual discovery of the ring's significance created exactly the kind of public sensation that the royal family had anticipated, with newspapers and magazines around the world featuring detailed analyses of what Catherine's possession of Diana's most famous piece of jewelry might mean for the future of the House of Windsor. The coverage ranged from celebratory pieces about the touching tribute to Diana's memory to more analytical articles exploring the complex symbolism of passing such a significant artifact from one generation to the next. Camilla found herself in the unique position of being one of the few people who understood the full emotional complexity of the situation, having witnessed Catherine's careful revelation firsthand and observed the immediate reactions of all parties involved. Her own feelings about the development remained complicated, mixing genuine admiration for Catherine's handling of the situation with an inevitable sense of melancholy about her own relationship to Diana's enduring legacy within the royal family's collective memory. The public's reaction to the news exceeded even the most optimistic projections from the royal communications team, with polls showing overwhelming approval for Catherine's decision to wear Diana's ring and widespread praise for what was seen as a touching gesture of respect and continuity. The positive response seemed to validate the careful planning that had gone into the revelation, demonstrating that the royal family's instincts about public sentiment had been accurate and that Catherine's approach had struck exactly the right tone. Within the family itself, the revelation had sparked numerous private conversations about tradition, continuity, and the ways in which the monarchy balanced respect for the past with the need to remain relevant to contemporary audiences. Camilla participated in several of these discussions, contributing her own perspective while carefully navigating the sensitivities that surrounded any mention of Diana's legacy and its ongoing influence on royal family dynamics. The practical implications of Catherine's possession of the ring began to manifest in various ways as royal engagements and public appearances took on additional significance due to the increased attention focused on her jewelry choices. Every public outing became an opportunity for observers to note whether she was wearing Diana's ring, turning what had once been a simple matter of personal style into a form of symbolic communication that carried meaning far beyond its original intent. Camilla's own public appearances during this period required careful consideration of how her presence might be interpreted in the context of the renewed attention to Diana's memory. Her communications team worked closely with the broader royal household to ensure that her engagements complemented rather than competed with the narrative surrounding Catherine and the ring, demonstrating the level of coordination required to manage such a complex public relations situation. The international dimension of the story added another layer of complexity to the situation, as media outlets around the world picked up the narrative and interpreted it through their own cultural and political lenses. Some focused on the romantic aspects of the story, celebrating it as a fairy tale continuation of Diana's legacy, while others examined it more critically as a calculated move designed to boost the monarchy's popularity during a period of social and economic uncertainty. Behind the scenes, the revelation had prompted renewed discussions about the broader collection of royal jewelry and the protocols governing how such pieces were passed down through generations. Catherine's possession of Diana's ring raised questions about other significant pieces in the collection and how decisions were made about their distribution among family members, leading to a comprehensive review of existing policies and procedures. The impact on William was perhaps the most profound of all, as he found himself thrust back into the spotlight in connection with his mother's memory in ways that brought both comfort and challenge. His public statements about Catherine wearing the ring were carefully crafted to honor Diana's memory, while also establishing clear boundaries around what aspects of their relationship the family was willing to discuss publicly, reflecting the ongoing tension between transparency and privacy that characterized royal communications. For Catherine herself, wearing the ring brought both privilege and pressure, as she became acutely aware that her every public appearance would be scrutinized for signs of how she was honoring Diana's legacy. Her approach to this responsibility revealed a thoughtful understanding of the symbolic weight of her position, as she used various public engagements to demonstrate her commitment to causes that had been important to Diana, while also establishing her own distinct identity within the royal framework. The anniversary of Diana's death, which occurred several months after Catherine's revelation, took on particular significance as the first such commemoration since the ring had been publicly identified as part of Catherine's jewelry collection. The careful orchestration of events surrounding this sensitive date demonstrated the royal family's growing sophistication in managing complex narratives that touched on both historical legacy and contemporary relevance. Camilla's role during these commemorative events required particular sensitivity, as her presence at any Diana-related observances carried inevitable reminders of the complicated history that had shaped all of their relationships. Her approach to these occasions reflected years of experience in navigating such delicate situations, balancing respect for Diana's memory with authenticity to her own position within the family structure. The long-term implications of Catherine's revelation continued to unfold throughout the year, influencing everything from public perception surveys about the royal family to academic discussions about the role of material objects in maintaining institutional continuity. The ring had become more than a piece of jewelry. It had evolved into a symbol of the monarchy's ability to adapt and evolve while maintaining connections to its most meaningful traditions and relationships. As the initial excitement about the revelation began to settle into a new normal, Camilla found herself reflecting on how the entire episode had demonstrated the royal family's growing sophistication in managing its public narrative. The careful planning, timing, and execution of Catherine's revelation had shown that lessons had been learned from previous communications challenges, and that the family was developing more effective strategies for sharing significant news with the public in ways that enhanced rather than complicated their overall mission. The success of the ring revelation also provided a template for how similar situations might be handled in the future, establishing precedents for how personal family decisions could be shared with the public in ways that honored both tradition and contemporary expectations. For Camilla, this represented an encouraging sign that the royal family was finding its footing in an increasingly complex media landscape, while staying true to its core values and responsibilities. Fourth document, The Passage of Time, had a way of providing perspective on even the most emotionally charged moments, and As the months following Catherine's revelation accumulated, Camilla found herself able to reflect more clearly on the profound changes that seemingly simple gesture had brought to their family dynamics. The initial shock and complex emotions had gradually given way to a deeper understanding of what the ring truly represented, not just as a connection to Diana's memory, but as a symbol of the royal family's ability to heal, grow, and move forward while honoring its most important relationships and commitments. The transformation in Catherine's public persona following the revelation had been remarkable to witness, as she evolved from someone who wore the ring with obvious awareness of its significance to someone who had truly made it her own. The piece of jewelry that had once seemed like a weighty inheritance had become an integral part of her identity as a working royal, worn with the confidence of someone who understood both its history and her own role in continuing the story it represented. Camilla's relationship with Catherine had also evolved during this period, deepened by their shared experience of that pivotal afternoon and the conversations that had followed. The careful navigation of the ring's revelation had demonstrated Catherine's diplomatic skills and emotional intelligence in ways that had earned Camilla's increased respect and admiration, while also providing a foundation for more authentic communication between the two women about the challenges and rewards of their respective positions within the royal hierarchy. The broader impact on the royal family's public standing had exceeded all expectations, with polling data consistently showing increased approval ratings that seemed directly correlated to the positive response Catherine's handling of Diana's ring had generated. The episode had demonstrated the power of symbolic gestures to communicate values and continuity in ways that traditional royal communications sometimes struggled to achieve, providing valuable lessons for future public engagement strategies. William's growth throughout this period had been particularly evident to those who knew him well, as he had successfully navigated the complex emotional terrain of seeing his mother's most famous piece of jewelry take on new life in his wife's hands. His public comments about the ring and what it meant to his family had struck exactly the right balance between honoring Diana's memory and establishing clear boundaries around their private grief, showing a maturity and sophistication that boded well for his future role as king. The international dimension of the story had continued to evolve as well, with the ring becoming a symbol that transcended its original British context to represent broader themes about love, loss, continuity, and renewal that resonated with audiences around the world. Foreign media coverage had generally been positive, viewing the episode as evidence of the British royal family's ability to remain relevant and emotionally connected to contemporary concerns while maintaining its distinctive traditions and protocols. Within royal circles, the success of Catherine's revelation had prompted broader discussions about how the family could more effectively use its vast collection of historically significant objects to strengthen public connection and understanding. The ring had demonstrated that these artifacts could serve as powerful communication tools when deployed thoughtfully, leading to renewed interest in the stories behind other significant pieces and how they might be incorporated into future public engagement strategies. The anniversary of the engagement announcement, which fell nearly a year after Catherine's initial revelation to Camilla, provided an opportunity to assess the long-term impact of that decision. The continued positive public response to Catherine wearing Diana's ring suggested that the initial instincts about its significance had been correct, and that the careful approach to sharing this news had established a strong foundation for ongoing public support and understanding. For Camilla personally, the experience had provided valuable insights into her own evolving role within the royal family and her relationship with Diana's continuing legacy. Rather than viewing the ring as a reminder of past difficulties, she had come to see it as evidence of the family's capacity for growth and healing, proof that even the most complicated relationships could eventually find resolution through patience, understanding, and genuine commitment to shared values and goals. The practical lessons learned from the ring revelation had already begun to influence other aspects of royal communications and engagement strategy. The careful timing, the intimate setting for initial disclosure, and the gradual public rollout had provided a template for how sensitive family matters could be handled in ways that honored both personal privacy and public interest, establishing new standards for how such situations might be approached in the future. Catherine's comfort level with wearing the ring had continued to grow throughout the year, as she developed her own relationship with this piece of Diana's history, and found ways to honor its significance while making it authentically part of her own story. Her approach to discussing the ring in interviews and public settings had evolved from careful acknowledgement of its importance to more natural integration of its symbolism into her broader communications about service, family, and commitment to royal duties. The impact on Diana's own legacy had been profoundly positive, as Catherine's respectful stewardship of the ring had introduced Diana's story to new generations while reinforcing her continuing relevance to contemporary discussions about royal service and personal authenticity. Rather than being relegated to historical memory, Diana's influence had been given new life through Catherine's thoughtful approach to carrying forward her most recognizable symbol. As Camilla looked toward the future, she felt increasingly optimistic about the royal family's ability to navigate complex emotional and symbolic terrain while maintaining both authenticity and effectiveness in their public service. The Ring episode had demonstrated that careful planning, emotional intelligence, and genuine respect for all parties involved could transform potentially difficult situations into opportunities for growth, healing, and stronger public connection. The lessons learned from Catherine's revelation extended far beyond the specific circumstances of that afternoon in the drawing room, providing insights into leadership, communication, and relationship management that would serve the royal family well in addressing future challenges and opportunities. The success of this approach had established new confidence in the family's ability to handle sensitive matters with both grace and strategic effectiveness. In her quiet moments of reflection, Camilla often returned to that pivotal afternoon when Catherine had first revealed the ring, remembering not just her own initial shock and complex emotions, but also the careful preparation and thoughtful execution that had made the moment possible. It had been a masterclass in royal diplomacy and emotional intelligence, demonstrating skills that would serve Catherine well throughout her future reign, and providing a model for how the monarchy could continue to evolve while honoring its most important traditions and relationships. The story of the ring had become, ultimately, a story about the power of symbol and gesture to heal old wounds and create new possibilities for understanding and connection. As Camilla watched Catherine wear Diana's ring with increasing confidence and natural grace, she felt a sense of completion that she had not expected to experience. A recognition that some stories could indeed find happy endings even after the most difficult beginnings. The silence that had followed Catherine's initial revelation had given way to something far more valuable, a new chapter in the royal family's ongoing story, one written with wisdom, compassion, and hope for the future.